Sylvester Stallone stepped into a dimly lit bar in the heart of a small German town. The scent of cheap beer and sweat filled the air as old rock music played from a crackling speaker. He just wanted a quiet drink, but fate had other plans. A group of bulky, leather-clad bikers in the corner noticed him. Their leader, a bald man with a jagged scar across his cheek, smirked. "Look who it is. Hollywood tough guy," he sneered, loud enough for everyone to hear. His gang chuckled. Stallone ignored them, walking to the bar. He ordered a drink, calm as ever. But they weren't done. Another biker, tall and mean-looking, got up and walked over. "Hey, movie star," he mocked, leaning in close. "Think you're a real tough guy, huh?" Stallone took a slow sip. The biker, irritated, suddenly slapped the glass from his hand, sending it crashing to the floor. The bar fell silent. The bartender froze. The other customers held their breath. The bikers grinned, waiting for Stallone to explode in anger. Instead, he did something no one expected. He smirked. Then slowly he began rolling up his sleeves. The gang's laughter faded. The air grew thick with tension. The leader of the bikers leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "What's wrong, Hollywood?" he growled. "Afraid of a real fight?" Every customer in the bar had their eyes locked on Sylvester Stallone. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. The leader of the bikers smirked, taking a step forward. "You hear me, movie star?" he sneered. "Or did all those Hollywood stunts make you deaf?" Stallone stayed silent. He calmly adjusted his sleeves, rolling them up past his thick forearms. The way his muscles flexed wasn't lost on the crowd. The biker gang exchanged glances, confused. This wasn't the reaction they expected. One of them, a lanky guy with greasy blonde hair, chuckled nervously. "Maybe he thinks he's in a movie," he joked. The others laughed, their confidence returning. The leader cracked his knuckles and tilted his head. "You're quiet, Hollywood. That means one of two things. Either you're scared, or you think you're better than us." Still no response from Stallone. The leader stepped even closer, his breath reeking of cheap whiskey. Then, without warning, he shoved Stallone's shoulder, hard. Gas filled the bar. A chair scraped against the floor as someone scooted back. Sensing things were about to go south, Stallone barely moved. His feet stayed planted like a statue. The leader's grin faltered for half a second. He hadn't expected that. Another biker, shorter but built like a bulldog, stood up. "Maybe we should teach Hollywood a lesson," he muttered. Then out of nowhere, a glass shattered against the wall. Everyone turned. The bartender, an old grizzled man with a thick beard, stood behind the bar, shaking his head. "You idiots have no idea what you're messing with," he muttered. The bikers scoffed. "What are you talking about, old man?" The bartender didn't answer. Instead, he turned to Stallone. "You sure you want to do this, Sly?" Stallone finally spoke. His voice was calm, low, steady. "I don't fight for free." The bikers burst into laughter. "Oh, we'll pay you, all right," the leader sneered. "We'll pay you with a good beating." Stallone just smirked. Cliffhanger. The leader of the bikers cracked his knuckles and said, "Then let's see what you've got, Hollywood." The leader of the bikers took a step closer, cracking his knuckles. The rest of his gang spread out, forming a loose circle around Stallone. The entire bar watched in silence. Stallone didn't move. He just stood there, smirking like he had all the time in the world. "You don't fight for free, huh?" the leader mocked. "Then how about this? We knock you down, and you buy us all around." The bikers laughed. The bartender sighed, rubbing his temples like he'd seen this stupidity before. One of the bikers, a tall brute with tattoos crawling up his neck, decided to make the first move. He swung a punch straight at Stallone's face, but it never landed. In the blink of an eye, Stallone tilted his head just enough for the fist to miss. Then, before anyone could react, bam! He caught the biker's arm mid-swing, twisted it, and drove his elbow into the guy's ribs. The biker gasped, his knees buckling as he collapsed onto a table, knocking over a row of beer mugs. The bar erupted in chaos. "What the hell?" another biker shouted. The leader's smirk disappeared. He wasn't laughing anymore. The other bikers moved in fast. One tried grabbing Stallone from behind, but before he could even wrap his arms around him, Stallone sent an elbow flying backward, smashing into the guy's nose. A sickening crunch filled the air. Blood sprayed. The biker stumbled back, groaning in pain. Now the whole gang was pissed. The bartender wiped a glass with a rag, unfazed. "Told you idiots," he muttered. Stallone adjusted his stance, rolling his shoulders like he was just warming up. His expression never changed. Then something unexpected happened. A deep voice came from the back of the bar. "That's enough." The room turned to see an old man in a leather jacket, sitting at a booth, watching everything. His face was weathered, his silver beard trimmed neatly. He looked like a man who had seen a lot of fights, and won most of them. The leader of the bikers scowled. "Stay out of this, old man." The stranger ignored him, his eyes locked onto Stallone. "You don't need to do this," he said, his voice firm. Stallone tilted his head slightly, studying the man. There was something about him, something familiar. The bikers were getting impatient. One of them whispered, "Who the hell is that guy?" The leader wasn't about to lose face. He growled, "I don't care who he is. Hollywood here still needs to learn a lesson." Stallone exhaled slowly, like he was considering his options. Then, he reached up and started taking off his jacket. The bikers hesitated. The stranger watched carefully. Cliffhanger. The leader clenched his fists and said, "Big mistake, Hollywood." The entire bar was locked in silence. Every eye watched as Stallone slowly took off his jacket, revealing his thick, muscular arms. The bikers, who had been laughing minutes ago, weren't laughing anymore. The leader's nostrils flared. He was losing control of the situation. That couldn't happen. Not in front of his gang. Not in front of a bar full of people. "You think this is a damn movie, Hollywood?" he spat. Stallone didn't answer. He just rolled his shoulders, loosening up. That was the last straw. The leader snapped his fingers, and two bikers charged at Stallone from opposite sides. The first one lunged, swinging a wild punch, but Stallone moved like a shadow. He ducked, letting the fist sail over his head. In the same motion, he grabbed the biker's wrist, twisted it, and drove a brutal knee straight into his stomach. The biker choked out a breath and crumpled to the floor. The second one tried tackling him, but Stallone sidestepped at the last second, grabbing the guy by the collar and slamming him face first into the bar counter. A sickening thud echoed through the room. The bar exploded into chaos. Chairs screeched as people scrambled to get out of the way. A couple of men pulled out their phones, recording everything. The leader cursed under his breath. His guys were getting torn apart. He grabbed a beer bottle off a table and smashed it against the counter, turning it into a jagged weapon. "All right, tough guy," he snarled. "Let's see how you handle this." Then, out of nowhere, boom! A gunshot. Everyone froze. The bartender was holding an old shotgun, aimed straight at the ceiling. A thin wisp of smoke curled from the barrel. "That's enough," he barked. The leader turned to him, furious. "Stay out of this, old man." The bartender locked eyes with him. "Boy, you're playing with fire and you don't even know it." The leader was about to say something, but then he saw the look in the bartender's eyes. It wasn't fear. It wasn't anger. It was pity. The leader's grip tightened on the broken bottle. His pride wouldn't let him back down now. Cliffhanger. He spun back toward Stallone, bottle raised, ready to strike. The leader gripped the broken bottle tight, his knuckles turning white. Stallone stood motionless, his expression unreadable. The bar held its breath. Then, the leader lunged. The sharp glass sliced through the air, aiming straight for Stallone's face. But he never made it. In a split second, Stallone snatched the leader's wrist mid-swing. His grip was like steel. The leader's eyes widened in shock. He couldn't move. Then, crack! Stallone twisted his wrist just enough to send the bottle flying. It shattered against the wall. The leader gasped, pain shooting up his arm. His knees buckled slightly. The other bikers froze. They weren't laughing anymore. Stallone's voice was calm, steady. "You done?" The leader clenched his jaw. His pride screamed no, but his body said yes. He nodded. Stallone let go of his wrist. The leader stumbled back, shaking his hand in pain. Then, out of nowhere, thud. The bar doors flew open. A tall, broad-shouldered man stepped inside, his long coat dripping from the rain outside. His eyes swept across the scene. Broken glass, unconscious bikers, Stallone standing calm as ever. The bikers recognized him instantly. "Shit," one of them muttered. It's Reiner. Reiner, the boss of the entire gang, the man the leader answered to. He walked forward, slow, deliberate. His boots echoed against the wooden floor. The leader straightened up, trying to act tough. Reiner, we were just… Smack! Reiner's backhand sent him crashing into a table. The bar went silent. Reiner's deep voice rumbled. I leave you in charge for one night, and you pick a fight with him? The leader wiped blood from his lip, confused. Him? He's just… Reiner turned to Stallone and raised a hand in salute. The entire gang went pale. Stallone nodded back almost casually. The leader blinked in shock. Wait, you two know each other? Reiner's jaw tightened. Boy, you have no idea who you just tried to fight. The leader swallowed hard. Cliffhanger. Reiner turned to Stallone and said, Tell them who you really are. The entire bar was frozen. The bikers, tough men who had spent their lives throwing punches and breaking bones, now looked like kids who had just realized they messed with the wrong person. The leader, still rubbing his jaw from Reiner's slap, stammered, What do you mean? He's just some Hollywood actor. Reiner let out a humorless chuckle. He looked at Stallone. You want to tell them? Or should I? Stallone stayed silent for a moment. Then finally he spoke. I trained with Reiner a long time ago, back when I wasn't acting. The leader frowned. Trained? Trained for what? Reiner turned to him. War. The room went dead silent. The leader blinked. You're lying. Reiner ignored him, keeping his eyes on Stallone. You're still as fast as I remember. Stallone shrugged. Slower than before. Reiner smirked. Didn't look like it. The bartender sighed, shaking his head. You idiots really picked a fight with Sylvester Stallone, former Special Forces combat instructor? The leader's face drained of color. Special… what? Reiner stepped closer, voice low. Before the movies, before the fame, before all of it, this man trained some of the deadliest fighters in the world. You think he's just an actor? You think Hollywood made him tough? Reiner gestured to the unconscious bikers scattered across the floor. That was him going easy on you. The leader staggered back. His legs felt weak. His brain tried to process what he just heard. Reiner wasn't done. And you? You went and picked a fight with him over a damn drink? The leader swallowed hard. He felt like an idiot. He was an idiot. Then Stallone took a step forward. The leader flinched. Stallone picked up his drink from the counter. The replacement the bartender had poured after his first one got knocked over. He took a slow sip. Then he placed it back down and turned to Reiner. Next round's on him, he said, nodding toward the leader. The whole bar erupted in laughter. The bikers were humiliated, but none of them said a word. They knew they had lost, badly. One by one, they helped their unconscious buddies off the floor and quietly shuffled out of the bar. The leader was the last one to leave. Before stepping out, he turned and met Stallone's eyes one last time. Stallone just smirked. The leader looked away and walked out into the night. Cliffhanger. Reiner sat down at the bar and said, It's been a long time, Sly. You still drink whiskey? Stallone glanced at Reiner, a smirk playing on his lips. Still drink it. Just don't let it drink me. Reiner chuckled, signaling the bartender. 2 whiskeys. The bartender poured the drinks, sliding one to Stallone. He took a slow sip, savoring the taste. You knew they'd back down, Reiner said, watching the last of the bikers disappear into the night. Stallone shrugged. Didn't know. Just figured they'd run out of stupid eventually. Reiner laughed. You haven't changed a bit. The bar slowly returned to normal. The music played again. People whispered, replaying the scene they had just witnessed. One man leaned over to the bartender. That was real, right? Not some, I don't know, stunt? The bartender shook his head. No stunt, kid. That was real. Stallone finished his drink and stood up. He stretched, rolling his shoulders. Good seeing you, Reiner. But I should get going. Reiner nodded. You sure? We could use a guy like you again. Stallone smirked. Nah, I've had my fights. He tossed a bill on the counter and turned to leave. But just as he reached the door, the bartender called out, Hey, Sly! Stallone paused, looking back. The bartender grinned. Next round's on him. The whole bar burst into laughter. Stallone chuckled, shaking his head. Then, with one final glance at the now quiet room, he stepped outside into the cool night air. The door swung shut behind him.